Hi!
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome to Let's Talk Jaws! Woo! Welcome back. If you're just joining us and you're new, we're glad to have you here. If you're coming back, we're glad you came back. Woo-woo.
Hello, hello, hello. I just saw something pop up.
How was your week, Michael?
It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
A lot of people came back to work. It was nice to not have the entire second floor of the building to myself.
Oh, nice. Did you
I
get hair?
had to put on shoes.
Well, folks, tonight we're going to discuss the amazing career and Michael's good friend that helped him write the foreword of his book, Jaws 2, The Making of a Hollywood Sequel. And his name is, we all know him as
Carl Gottlieb. I'm sorry. I'm sending him a note.
Carl Gottlieb. There he is. There's Carl.
Oh, I thought you said he popped on.
No, I put his
picture. I'm typing him something. I'm like, he's there?
We'll just talk about, you were telling me before that you had dinner with him. What was it? You put a memory on Facebook. I saw you talking to Carl, ask him about, Jaws 2, doing some research for your book. And,
yes.
And he had dinner with you, and he's a nice guy. I've never heard anybody say any bad things about him. I heard he's just amazing, nicest guy ever.
We went to dinner at a very nice Italian restaurant, and when we got there, he told me that he had been eating there so long that his tab, back when you could say, put it on my tab, his tab was number 36. That's how long he'd been eating there.
He had his own tab. Was the food good?
Oh, it was delicious.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Did Carl recommend anything, or did you just kind of pick your own thing?
No, I just kind of picked. I pretty much either stick with lasagna or spaghetti and Italian sausage. I'm not a big variety guy, but we talked. He told some great stories about Dirty Harry and a different director that had gotten. Frank Sinatra was supposed to be Dirty Harry, and then he dropped out, and the studio wanted Eastwood. And the director said, "I'll never do this film with Clint Eastwood."
Wait, that's another movie I should know. Wait, they picked Frank Sinatra was supposed to be Dirty Harry?
Yes.
And then, okay.
Oh because God. he had done a film earlier called The Detective, which is more movie trivia later. He had done a film called The Detective, and then he wanted to do another kind of a cop film. And he was signed to be Dirty Harry, but then he didn't. The script was a little too violent for him. So they got Eastwood. The director said, "I'll never do this film with Clint Eastwood." And he was right, because he didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. Carl went to Syracuse, actually, too. And a friend of mine has a house there. That's a great school.
He's an Orangeman. That's like the place to go if you want to be a sports broadcaster. I know Bob Costas went there and a bunch of other people. That's the place to go. So if you want to be a sportscaster, go to Syracuse.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not worthy.
There he is.
Yeah.
There he is.
I got a fangirl out, Carl. I got a fangirl out. Sorry.
Now this webcam of mine has a nasty habit of zooming in and out, whether I ask it to or not. So just pretend as a director in a room somewhere saying, push in, no, pull out, push in, pull out, because that's what happens. So
go camera two, go camera two.
Yeah. So let me see if I can get myself full screen here.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mick. Hi, Ross. Thanks for coming back. Guess who we have? We have Carl the legend. He's on right now. And we are going to talk about his amazing career. Carl, where's that Emmy? You got that Emmy? Got that Emmy to show me?
I've got it, but it's downstairs. I can bring it up and show it to you, but
I wanted you to hold it.
Let me see if I can get how do I get full screen on this?
Yeah, no problem.
Well, the way it is. I'm looking at it. The three of us are in a big frame up on top, and then down at the bottom there's a little just solo me, basically my cam.
Right.
If I X on that, what'll happen? Let's see.
Are you on your laptop?
No, I'm on a desktop.
Okay. You know, if you can move if the camera moved a little bit, then you'd be centered.
You move your monitor a little bit. There you go. Oh, that's a little better. Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome.
Perfect.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're just joining us. We have Carl Gottlieb on, and we have, oh, look at them, Michael. They're all on now. Look at it. They're in droves. Ross says, Carl.
It's like sweep week. We brought in the big guns.
Yeah, we did. Look at that. Best.
Sorry, I'm just touching with the camera now.
Yeah, that's fun, Carl. Best memory of Jaws Fest, they said. Iron balls. Only half of iron balls. Oh, God, this is great. Oh, we got him. It's Carl. He's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, most important question, how are you feeling?
All things considered, I'm just fine. I've just gotten word that in a couple of weeks I will be able to dispense with my 24-hour caregivers who have been hovering over me ever since I got out of the hospital. And I went into rehab for 3 months, and I came home in November 1st, and I've had 24-hour caregivers. And just as we were getting ready to all heal up, here comes the pandemic. So basically, I've got a lot of what do you call it? I got a lot of practice in staying home alone, and doing everything on this. So you know, I think I've posted on it elsewhere on Facebook or on Quintessential.
We saw you before, and everybody's like, Carl's live. I'm like, what? And then we went back, and you were so funny and then Michael was like, look, there's my book.
Yes, thank you. Even if you were using it for a coaster, thank you for including the book on your coffee table.
Oh, there's my book. I was like, that's awesome. Can you see the comments? Carl Victor says, wow, this is awesome. Jaws legend. You can see the comments, right?
Yes. Where best memory of Jaws Fest. Mick Cashman.
Yeah.
Hi all.
Okay. Best memory.
Is that the? Hi Michael, Carl and Jay from UK, Ross Eisenberg, Becky Reiner Rex. So I'm seeing. I can't tell. Well, let's see. 3:39. Oh, this. I guess the
time difference.
Okay.
Yeah, we get a lot of people.
The latest comments are down at the bottom. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Best memory from Jaws Fest. Health advice. Your favorite author. Tell us a Steve Martin story. Oh, okay. So best memory from Jaws Fest. Somebody wants to know what your best memory. Which Jaws Fest? 2012 was the last one. So,
2005 was the better one.
Yeah. The Jaws Fest that I think it was 2005 was really terrific because I think they screened the movie on the beach down at Oak Bluffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was nice.
They had an outdoor event, and everybody was in attendance, and the people were fascinated. And there was a big screen on the beach.
Yeah.
So there was two great. Let's see, yeah, two great moments I remember. One, of course, is the evening screening, and we had a great Q&A at the Flying Horses.
Yeah. Yeah.
But earlier in the day, when we were at the town hall, there was this wonderful statue of Richard and Robert and Roy on the stern of the boat. I think it's Greg Nicolero's wax.
Yes.
And it was scary. I mean, you could see the hairs on the Shaw's hand and everything. And Shaw's sister came in, and they were leading her over to where I was at the end, in the hall at the, I guess it was at the church. And they were leading her, and she was kind of backing in, and she didn't see the statue. And then she turned around, and she was like 4 feet away from her brother's wax.
Oh, wow.
And boy, did she do a take.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps right now.
Yeah, it was really a great chill moment.
Oh my God, that is a great story. Somebody wants to know health advice. They're like, Carl, what's your best health advice?
My best what advice?
Health
advice.
Oh, floss. Floss regularly.
Mike, we had a picture of you before you came on, and Michael and I were saying the picture was from a while back and go, he looks better now.
I've lost 20 pounds. I've lost a lot of weight. I've got this, this interesting beard, this kind of Hemingway-esque beard.
Okay,
my hair is a little odd, but that's because I'm cutting it myself with the clippers, with just a home health aide wielding the clippers. It's kind of a challenge staying kempt, groomed, but whoa, camera fell down. Don't.
Okay.
Like Chevy Chase, no problem.
I got Ross. He said, Carl, do you have any production used props from Jaws and, more importantly, Caveman, the movie?
You got to remember, everybody, that back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, nobody gave a shit.
Nobody cared.
The orca was left to rot in Martha's Vineyard, and even so, it's like lying half buried in the mud in a beach off of Lynn Murphy's house, and you got to climb over private property and go down. And there is nothing left but the keel, which is too big and heavy to move. But every piece of the boat, every scrap of lumber, everything has been picked over by people.
Yeah.
But nobody and the orca that they towed back to Universal was broken up for scrap lumber. So Spielberg went crazy when he heard that. He was very unhappy.
Did you get to see, Carl? Did you get to see our episode when we showed Peter? He has Quint's chair, his rod. Did you see that one? He has the props, and he has one of the fins, right, Michael?
Yeah, he's got the toe fin.
Yeah, he's got the toe fin. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Joe Alves is often called on to authenticate things, and the Greener harpoon gun. Apparently there were doubles, and Joe has authenticated both of them, and both guys are saying this is picture used, and we don't know which one it is.
Yeah, Chris and Mr. Ben David. Yeah, they both have the harpoon gun.
Right. So somebody's given it to me, but I mean I've held it. Somebody brought it to a convention, so I hefted it and looked at it. It's exactly as I remember it. So I said, well, this looks like the one that I had, but you never know.
All right. So when we started out, we were talking that Carl went to Syracuse, and I mentioned that that was a big broadcast school.
Yeah.
Is that why you went there?
Oh, when I went there, you got to remember it was 60 years ago. So the Annenberg School of Communications did not exist at that point. There was a school of journalism, which was a very good one. At Columbia, Syracuse, University of Missouri, those were like the premier journalism schools at the time. So I was at Syracuse, and I was a dual major in theater arts and journalism. So I divided my time between the drama department and the Daily Orange, which was a newspaper. I had a weekly column in the Daily Orange.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I wrote a column once in which I kind of, in college, everybody's an iconoclast and a cynic. So I wrote a very cynical column about a girl, I think named Janet Smith. She was on a 4-year full tuition, everything scholarship for baton twirling. She was the baton twirler.
Oh, really?
And the band, the Syracuse University marching band, was billed as 100 men and a girl. And she would twirl the baton and
100 men and a girl.
And I wrote a column where I said, well, it should be called 100 men and someone who drops the baton at least twice a game. And the band was very possessive of Janet. So I went to a football game, and they heard that I was in the band, heard that I was in the stands. And they came after me. They were going to hand me down like mosh pits. They were going to hand me down and carry me down to the field and pants me or do something, humiliating. And me and my friends who were sitting in a fraternity section, we retreated to the top of the stadium so nobody could get behind us. And we were lined up, ready to fight off these guys. a big showdown, and they backed off. So I survived. But then for the next week, I think I put up a notice somewhere on the bulletin board saying, Carl Gottlieb will be available to discuss his recent column about the marching band in the corner booth at the Orange Bar and Grill on University Avenue.
What was the name of your column again? The Orange, what was it? The
Orange Bar and Grill. There was only one bar near the campus. It was, because it was a Methodist school. And they controlled all the zoning.
Yeah.
One legacy bar that was obviously a gold mine because it was a great bar. There was a great bartender. Yeah. There was a sassy waitress who gave everybody shit. And
the airport hasn't changed. It's still small. It's small, and it hasn't changed in 20 years. I mean, it still has the same rug on it because it's like the only one you can get into. And there's like so many flights, and there's like always full, and you can never get in there. It's just crazy. But yeah, the airport.
Jay, where is this?
It's Syracuse. To get into Syracuse, the airport is still there. It's still like it hasn't really renovated. It's still like the same thing. It's like
when I was there was a great place to go late at night called Track 14, which was down by the train station.
Downtown. I know what that is. Yeah.
There was McCarthy's Bar and Grill that had clams and corn and stuff and green beer on St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, downtown is really cool. I haven't because of the COVID, but haven't been there since last year. But it's fun. It's a nice little. Well, it's college town, but like downtown. And then other than that, it's a quiet.
Oh yeah, no, I was a friend of mine and I, another Syracuse grad. We've connected with a couple of friends from 60 years ago who because of Facebook, they go, "Oh, hey, are you still here? I'm still here." And I was reminded of what a hotbed of student activity off campus Marshall Street was. Mm-hmm. Remember Marshall Street? And on Marshall Street, there was a restaurant called the Savoy Restaurant, where I worked as a fry cook, and there was a dormitory on the corner of Marshall and University Avenue where I had a solo room because I was a Gamma Delta Iota, so goddamn independent. I didn't.
Fraternity.
And I worked as a fry cook, and I worked for food services at the university. I earned my way through college, and I had a partial scholarship. But I went on Google Street Maps and went to Street View and satellite photos and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't recognize Marshall Street anymore. There was a place called Manny's Smoke Shop, which was a storefront.
Mm-hmm.
They had, sweatshirts and T-shirts and stuff. Now, apparently, it's like 4 storefronts and it's a supermarket of Syracuse memorabilia.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, the Orange Bar and Grill, it looks like it was all repurposed as a park or a pedestrian mall. Because I didn't even know where I was until I did Street View, and I looked up University Avenue. Sure enough, way at the end of the avenue is Krause Hall. That kind of Victorian gray building, which the only building I remember from the campus in those days. Drama school's been torn down. The journalism school is gone.
Mm-hmm.
We used to put the paper to bed in the shadow of the field house and the stadium, and that's all gone.
Yep.
It's a very different university. I mean, we were still playing. I was there when Jim Brown was there, and at that time,
Wow.
the football team was transitioning from this little kind of upstate New York circuit to Big Ten. So on our football schedule, there was Army and Penn State and powerhouses, and then there were schools like the big annual game was with Colgate, and Colgate, was not in that league. We beat Colgate like 57-0 or something. Because Jim Brown and Ernie Davis were playing, and Ben Schwartzwalder was the coach. It was a real big BFD.
Wow.
Anyway,
Wow.
I have very fond memories of Syracuse.
Oh, that's nice. How does it feel to direct a former Beatles member, Ringo Starr, in Caveman? He met his future wife, Barbara Bach, in the film. Yes, I remember that very, very well.
When we started putting the film together, we had cast Ringo and Barbara and Shelley Long and John Matuzak and Avery Schreiber and Jack Guilford. We had a cast. So my wife and I gave a party for everybody, before we shipped off for location, while we were still all in LA, kind of enjoying our civilian lives. And at that party, Ringo showed up with his girlfriend at the time, who was a wonderful photographer named Nancy Andrews. And Barbara showed up with her boyfriend, who was an Italian fellow with, buttery soft loafers and no socks and
Okay, they had significant others before they started the movie then. Okay, well, I didn't know that.
When we started the movie, they had separate companions.
Oh.
So we get to the movie, and we get down there, and we get to, if you know Caveman, we get to the scene where he tries to he drugs Matusak and tries to have sex with Barbara. And there's a very funny scene on top of a rock when they're flopping around, and he's, and there was a lot of physical comedy, so we had to rehearse that scene. And the art director had purposefully built the rock as about the same dimensions as a bed, as a queen size bed. So we all met in my room at the hotel to rehearse that scene. So they're flopping around, and I'm saying, okay, now put your leg over her. He put his leg over her, and they're rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. And then finally we said, okay, we'll call it a night. And the next morning, they show up on the set holding hands, kind of.
Aww.
And Doris Grau, who was the script supervisor, said, "Oh, look who's in love."
Aww.
They were inseparable forever after. They came to the premiere together. They went to London. They had this incredible auto crash where they spun out on the freeway in London and completely totaled a Mercedes 600 that they walked away from.
Wow! I didn't know. Wow!
And they stepped out of it, and they looked at each other and said, "I guess we're meant to be together for life."
Aww. Carl, I was gonna say, how did you cast Ringo? What did he audition, or was he just? I mean, he was perfect for the role.
Yeah, no, there was the role called for like a nebbishy leading man, and that's not, very few leading men who are short will acknowledge that. Like Dustin Hoffman will play against type. He doesn't have to play a leading man. He doesn't have to be a hero type. But when we were listing, who was available, it basically came down to Dudley Moore or Ringo Starr.
Really?
Yeah, it would have been a good movie with either one of them. Dudley, for whatever reason, passed, so and Ringo did a great audition.
He did.
So we did, and then once he was cast, I remember I had worked for Richard Lester as an actor in a movie called Petulia, which was filmed in San Francisco. So I called Richard Lester in London, who had directed Hard Day's Night. And I said, what can you tell me about working with Ringo?
Wow.
And Richard said, I always use 2 cameras because he never does the same thing twice. He's a nightmare if you're matching, if the editorial stuff, you have to match so that from edit to edit, you're doing consistent behavior. And Ringo had a lot of trouble matching. So the only way to solve that problem was to shoot him in his own close-up. So when you needed a shot of him, you had it, and it would match the master shot.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Dennis Quaid, who was opposite Ringo and played most of their scenes were together. Dennis is preternaturally skilled at matching. If Dennis, does a move on a line, he will do that move on that line every time you do the scene.
Yeah.
And even when we did some pickups, like 6 months later, when we finished filming in Puerto Vallarta and we were filming in Mexico City, and I had to do a pickup shot of a scene we had shot in Puerto Vallarta, Dennis, stepped into the scene. We lined up the camera to match the angle, and he did exactly the same stuff he had done 6 weeks earlier without being prompted. I mean, the script supervisor standing there saying, okay, you picked up some dirt in your right hand, you gestured with your left hand, you rolled, and he just got it all right.
Dennis Quaid.
Wow.
Great performance. Just me.
So you mentioned San Francisco. So how did the committee come about?
Oh, yeah, the committee. Okay, yeah.
Well, back in the 60s, there was only a couple of 3 improvisational theaters in the world, Second City and the committee, and then there was something called the Premise in New York. And the Second City had gone to New York to play. They'd gone to London and New York. They'd traded theaters with, anyway. There was a director at Second City in New York and a actress named Jessica Meyerson, Irene Reardon was her real name, who were bothered that Second City never did any topical political satire. They did great social satire and great goofy comedy, but they didn't hit any issues head on. And they thought that an improvisational theater should deal with the themes of the day.
Yeah.
So they said, well, we'll start our own theater. So they put together a demo tape of the stuff that Alan Meyerson had directed in New York and Chicago. And they went to San Francisco and they got a list of investors and they went around basically, auditioning and getting investors. And they got enough investors to rent a theater and remodel it and hire some actors. And they hired my friend Larry Hankin, who had been playing in St. Louis at the Compass Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a stage manager in those days. And they needed a stage manager. So they offered me the job. And I took it as soon as I could get out of the Army. I was drafted. As soon as I got out of the Army, I went to San Francisco and joined the committee as a stage manager. Wow. And then because it's improvisational, every now and then I would appear on stage in the character of stage manager. And I pretty much got my laughs all the time.
Yeah.
Then I went to New York to do a season on Broadway with a Broadway producer, the guy who had produced the committee on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alan Ryerson came to New York to cast a new company for the committee because they had bought a second theater that was so successful. And they were going to improvise plays. So they were hiring a second company, and Peter Bonners was directing that company. And that's the company that I joined as an actor in '66. And that company included Del Close and Howard Hessman and Barbara. And anyway, so then I rejoined the committee in '66. We had a great 2-year. The run started in '63. Mm-hmm. So by '68, there was backers who said, "Let's go to Los Angeles. Let's open an edition of the show in L.A." So they found a theater in L.A. In '68, they took a company to L.A. to open, which included me and Howard and a few other people. And we were a huge success in Los Angeles. And we played right up on the Sunset Strip, a place called Tiffany Theater. And because it was LA, everybody from television and the movies would come in to see the show, and we started getting job offers.
Yeah.
I was cast in the movie of MASH, and I was cast in by Zabriskie Point. Michelangelo Antonioni put me in Zabriskie Point and then cut me out of it. But anyway, so we were all working, and then I got hired by the Smothers Brothers to do
that's
musical comedy variety, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now I see a question about Roy Scheider ad lib. We're going to need a bigger boat. For years, I thought so, and I always would say so. People would say, "Oh, you wrote the greatest line in movies." I said, "No, Roy ad libbed it." And then somebody referred me to one of the documentaries that was additional material on the Blu-ray DVD of Jaws, one of the many releases. And on that documentary, they asked Roy about the line, and he says, no, that was always in the script. We used to say it because we had a very bad support boat, and we needed a bigger boat. And there was because you're going to need a bigger boat. And whenever something happened on the set, when a light fell down or a prop broke, we would say, we're going to need a bigger boat, because we wanted them to get the boat that they eventually relented and rented the correct boat, which was this big ocean-going tug called the Whitefoot. But he would throw that line in, whenever it was, apropos. And that was one of the times. And as it turns out, it became iconic.
Yeah.
You mentioned MASH. Was everybody in the cast, except for like Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland, were they offered to return for the television series, or just Gary Berghoff?
For some reason, they only offered it to Gary Berghoff. They didn't even offer it to Roger. I think they may have offered it to Roger Bowen. I think Roger Bowen may have done it. He played Colonel Blake before Harry Morgan. But no, they for some reason they only took Gary. They left the rest of us out of it.
Wow. Somebody said something. Carl partied at the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967 and doesn't remember it.
I wish that were true. But the fact is that during the Monterey Pop Festival in '67, I was working on stage in San Francisco, and I could not take the time off to go for 3 days down to Monterey for the festival, so I missed it.
Victor would know something like that.
But I heard about it from everybody who came back, and people said, "You should have seen Jimi Hendrix, oh my God, and Janis Joplin, this new Big Brother, all those acts broke." And my friend David Crosby, who was there very much so, and they talk about Jimi Hendrix's amazing performance, and it's described as this totally impromptu thing. And Crosby said, "Oh yeah, why did he take lighter fluid on stage with him?" And that's true. He when he's breaking his guitar, he sprays lighter fluid and sets it on fire. It was planned. Jimi Hendrix knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow.
Nothing spontaneous about that moment except the appearance of spontaneity, which apparently is enough.
Do you think
Wow.
Ozzy Osbourne planned that biting off the bat, or was that? Who knows?
I hope not. Ugh.
Creepy.
Creepy, right? Totally.
Well,
Speaking of
Dennis,
that, Crosby, you helped with his autobiography, right?
2 volumes.
oh yeah, I wrote his autobiography with him
Yeah.
as a collaborator. I didn't want to do ghostwriting. I didn't want to do as told to. I said, we'll write it together as co-authors. We'll share billing, same type. And so we did, and we wrote a terrific autobiography. It's really a great kind of history of rock and roll in the '60s, the transition from folk to rock. And then David didn't want to write the book until he was clean for a year, at least a year after he got out of jail. So in '88, there was a Writers Guild strike, and we sold the book for a huge advance. So I could afford to take the time off with David, and we could write the book. So we did.
That's awesome.
And between '88 and '92, so much happened. There was an earthquake. Crosby lost his house. He was in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, a lot of bad luck.
He had a liver transplant. And he discovered that he had a son that he never knew. So all that shit happened after we wrote the book. Wow. So another publishing house came to us and said, we got to update this. So we did. We wrote the second book about everything that happened since the first book, and that was my title was Since Then. How I lived through everything and survived to tell the tale.
Did you see the documentary last year on David?
Yeah. They filmed me for it, but they didn't include me.
Just like one quick shot of you in there, because I reviewed it. When I reviewed it, I mentioned you. I said, and look for Carl Gottlieb. So good. So let's move further into.
We're going to talk about, this is Bible right here, right there.
There it is.
That's the one that started it. It started it for me. That started it for probably everybody.
There's the new and improved. This is the latest edition from HarperCollins.
I'll go you one better. Here's one in German.
Yep. It's the best-selling book about the making of a movie ever.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Mine is way, way down on the list. So now you were originally Stephen brought you in just to touch up the script, and then you kind of were also cast. How were you cast as Meadows?
Well, as I say in the revised version, I was friends with Stephen. We had the same agent, and he liked to put us together to do stuff. He was one of the earliest agents who believed in synergy and packaging, and he thought me and Stephen were a good match. And in Medavoy's class of '68, when he signed us all, he also signed John Milius and Carol Eastman and Michelangelo Antonioni and a whole lot of people. But Stephen and I worked together, and we could not sell anything because the condition was that if we sold something, Stephen would direct it, and nobody would take a chance on that. And I just found in my papers, let me see if I can find this.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Look at that.
1974. And it's a great story. I was just going over it, and it's January '74. I've got to get it to Stephen and say, this is something we wrote that we should still do. This thing still works as a movie.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That was awesome. I love it. Well, we just pushed. We get the infamous scene where Meadows comes in. You're first, and I pulled the clip.
Anyway, so just to backtrack a little bit to answer the question. Yeah. So Stephen and I are friends. We're hanging out. We're writing stuff together. We can't sell it, and then he goes off to do Sugarland Express, which gets rave reviews. Pauline Kael said it was the most auspicious debut of a new director since Orson Welles and Citizen Kane.
Wow.
but it does no business. It tanks. It's not a popular movie. And Stephen, being very conscious of what he needs to succeed as a director, realizes he needs a popcorn movie. So he finds the script to Jaws on the desk at Zanuck and Brown's office and flips through it and says, "Hey, I'd like to do this next." And they say, "Okay." And then in the meantime, I have acted, just because we're friends and hanging out, I appear in 2 pre-Jaws Spielberg television movies. One was a pilot for Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, and one was a scary movie that anticipated The Exorcist. It was about a young girl who's possessed by the devil. It's called Something Evil, and I'm in that movie. So Stephen was aware that I could, improvise and act and work and play well with others. So he sent me the script of the Howard Sackler version of Jaws, the note on the cover saying "eviscerate it." So I sent him my notes. He showed them to Zanuck and Brown. They invited me out to the Bel Air Hotel for for breakfast one Sunday. Kind of like, where do you get a writer on a Sunday? Because Stephen really wanted to rewrite the script, and I don't think Sackler was available or didn't want to do it for whatever reason. So they talked to me, and then Stephen said, when he sent me the script for story purposes, he also said, find a part for yourself. It would be great to have you on the set. And it's going to be a long shoot, so, you should be there. So I found the part of Meadows, which was a slightly larger part when I read the script. And I said, okay, I'd like to play Meadows. So he said, okay, we'll cast you as Meadows. So I got cast as Meadows. And then we had this momentous meeting with Zanuck and Brown, and they said, we start shooting in 3 weeks. Can you leave with Stephen Tuesday? This was on a Sunday. Can you leave with Stephen on Tuesday? Because he's going to Boston to cast extras, and then from Boston he's going to the Vineyard, and we start shooting in 3 weeks. So I said, okay. And at that point, I was a story editor on The Odd Couple for ABC television.
Yeah, that's what
in those days, if you were in television, you wanted to be in movies. Not like it is now, but in those days, it was TV was the stepchild, and movies was the big deal. So I quit my job on a day's notice, and on Tuesday I was on a plane to Boston with Stephen, and we started tearing the script apart, and we started writing it on yellow paper. I started making notes, and that piece of paper became our Bible for the rest of the movie. And then we went to the Vineyard. Stephen and I shared a house, so we'd have breakfast together. We had a housekeeper who made breakfast and dinner. So we'd come back from shooting and we'd go straight to dinner at the house. Verna Fields would join us. We'd talk about the script, talk about the work that was to be done, the pages that I wrote that day. And I wouldn't recommend it as a way to make a movie, but as it turns out,
it didn't come out too bad.
I'm sorry, but I love Peter Benchley, but I'm so glad because the part with Ellen and Hooper, I'm just like, oh, thank God.
We were debating whether to keep that in the script or not.
Oh, thank God you didn't. Thank God.
And it was up until right up until like a week before we started shooting, it was still in the script. Because we said, well, for dramatic terms, if they're on the boat and they're depending on each other for survival, and there's this unspoken secret between them, if it comes out during the time when they're depending on each other for survival, that could be added tension, which was true. But given the characters of the actors as portrayed by Dreyfuss and Lorraine Gary and Scheider, all that infidelity shit was unbelievable, too far away. So we threw it all out. We threw away the subplot.
Thank God.
Of Larry Vaughn having a real estate development deal with the mafia for condos on the beach. All that shit left. And it became, we basically pared away all the undergrowth and just concentrated on the story of Men Against the Sea.
You know what? You read the book and then you see the scene where he comes to the house and then she says, so my husband tells me you're into sharks, and and it's almost like, is she flirting a little bit? Like, is it there? It's like almost like a subtle hint of just a little bit of flirting going on. That's just me.
Well, she's being nice. The cat, her.
No, but I the whole book, so I'm like, whatever.
Well, somewhere here I couldn't find it, but I have a clip that they aired years ago on when Dick Clark was doing bloopers and practical jokes, and it is the scene of you and Scheider and Dreyfuss coming up on Ben Gardner's boat and you falling in the water.
Exactly right. And it just happened that there was a film crew from the BBC filming that day, which is why that clip exists, because the script called for the three of us to go out in Hooper's little boat, the Fast and discover Ben Gardner. So we're filming, and there's like three, there's a camera on the boat, there's two cameras on shore. They're filming it with multiple cameras. Freddie Zendar, who was the nautical advisor, was Dreyfuss knew nothing about boats, so Zender was crouching Zender and the sound man were crouching under out of sight, and Freddie Zendar was operating the steering wheel from underneath, and he managed to get us alongside, but not quite close enough. So I was reaching in to grab the other boat to pull it close, and my center of gravity slipped, and I just go.
Victor says it in the comments here. It's nice fall in the ocean there, Carl. May 6th, 1974. You'll always remember.
A great dive. May 6th. Yeah, I guess that was when it was.
Wow.
Victor's like an almanac over here.
And then when I came out, they didn't, because I was a secondary character, they didn't have doubles for my wardrobe. They didn't have a whole second suit and trousers and everything. So rather than wait for me to dry out to get take two, Stephen said, let's just move on. We'll come back. We'll get it later. Yeah. And then the notion came, well, you know what? We'll film this back at Universal. And it turns out to be the biggest scream in the movie.
Was for me.
Yep. God. And Craig Kingsbury said, what kind of a shark destroys a boat, eats a guy, and then spits his head back into the boat?
It says, Carl, you have any regrets at cutting down the part of Meadows?
Of course. And if you look at the release prints of Jaws and the first, like the VHS cassettes, I get co-star billing with Lorraine Gary and Hamilton.
Yeah.
So Carl, Jaws, Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, with Lorraine Gary, Carl Gottlieb, and Murray Hamilton, because my part justified that billing. And as the years went by and the part was obviously cut out of the movie, my billing gradually eroded. And it was the hardest thing I ever did as a writer, was write myself out of the script. No writer should have to do that.
That means you're not an egomaniac, Carl.
What it means is, and I counsel everybody I know in show business, that the script, the thing, the project, is more important than any single ego, including the director and the movie stars.
Yeah.
If everybody works on the story, if everybody works on the movie without being turf conscious or billing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have an ego. I mean, I obviously Michael and I's second favorite movies, All That Jazz. I mean, they all called him an egomaniac because it was about him, and but I mean, it turned out to be I think one of the most amazing. And they said it was so egotistical, but at the same time, it's like, that's his life. That's his life,
And that was Bob Fosse. It worked for the movie,
Yeah, it did.
And Roy did have an ego, no question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of the story Jeff Kramer told me about Jaws 2, that they had to put like cones around his Mercedes to keep people from pissing on it. Yeah. Yeah.
He insisted on sunbathing, and we would get notes from the lab saying, can you get Scheider out of the sun? He doesn't match with earlier footage. He's turning brown. He looks like a shoe.
boy.
And he wouldn't, and he hated doing the movie. He only did it because he had agreed to by contract. They had him.
Yeah.
Contract. So he decided to, said, all right, I'll do it. But he didn't cooperate at all. And Victor Mirabelli asked, Victor's asking a lot of questions. The Hooper character dropped out of Jaws too because Dreyfuss said, fuck you, I'm doing Close Encounters.
And I don't blame him.
I'm doing another Spielberg movie. I don't have to do Jaws.
And he was on the Aurora, whatever. He was on the
out on the Aurora. That's right.
Aurora anyway. That's what happened. Victor, he just.
By the way, private note: the reason I named the boat the Aurora, that's the battleship that the crew mutinied and caused the riots in Odessa in Russia in 1905. That gave birth to the single greatest montage in movie history, which is the Odessa Steps sequence.
Yes,
wow,
the battleship Potemkin. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Wow. So you were writing and you just thought of that and said, okay, Aurora.
Well, I knew about that. So I knew about the Aurora. So if I picked I had to pick a name, and that was a nice name, and it had a history that I knew and nobody else did, but it's my little secret.
So what did you do with the character of Harry Meadows in Jaws 2? That's what Victor wants to know.
Oh yeah.
Jaws 2 is a great example. They offered me Jaws 2 at the same time they offered it to Dreyfuss. And Dreyfuss said, and Spielberg, they asked us all to come back. But Zanuck and Brown were stingy bastards.
I heard.
Unnaturally stingy. And they offered it to us for scale. It's the biggest picture of all time. They wanted us to do the sequel for scale. Spielberg was prepping Close Encounters. Was writing the script.
Yeah.
Dreyfuss was, pursuing his own career. I think he was doing Mr. Holland's Opus at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Or something. He was busy. So they essentially passed, and I passed. I said to my agent, if they're not going to budge on the price, fuck them. They'll be back, and it's going to cost. So,
I don't believe you.
So
So
they hired John Hancock and his wannabe screenwriter wife, who wrote this odd version and started shooting it. And the Jaws 2 schedule was set up because they had learned their lesson about shooting on the water in Nantucket Sound. So they figured they would shoot for 2 weeks in Martha's Vineyard, just get all the exteriors and the location and the town hall and the drive-bys and the billboard. And then they would, for the water stuff, they would go down to Florida where the water was warm. There was a secluded inlet. They could put the shark mechanism in the water and leave it there. And they built I think a 1 week hiatus in the schedule to truck the stuff down from the vineyard to Florida.
Yeah.
Well, 1 week into principal photography, the rushes are coming in, the dailies are coming in, and they're fucking awful. The director doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm watching them with Verna Fields, who by this time is an executive at Universal. And we're watching the dailies, and she's shaking her head. I said, what is he thinking? This is awful. And then she's conferring with the tower, and they're going, I don't know if we can continue with this guy. And this is a sequel to the biggest movie of all time. We're not going to jeopardize the franchise with some ego exercise by an incompetent director. So they said, Carl, can you figure out a way to salvage this? We do want to make it about young people, because that was when the youth market was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about it, and I said, well, you know what? There's a car culture in LA, which actually Dreyfuss knows about, because in American Graffiti, it's cruising, the culture of cruising, whether it's Van Nuys Boulevard or the Sunset Strip.
Not to be confused with cruising Al Pacino, that kind of cruising.
No.
Last time.
I said, what if there's a cruising culture with small boats? All the teenagers each have their own little boats.
Yeah.
They go out and walk around on the water, and each boat, has a character attached to it. and you can cast the boats and the actors together.
Yeah.
And they said, great idea. So that's what we did. I, put together this little flotilla of folks, and that group of young people took sailing lessons and began to perform as a unit. And then they paid me, considerably more than they had offered me. Because my agent, yeah.
Carl.
So we had him over a barrel, and
we got more money for you. Okay.
Yeah, so they paid me the right price.
Well, I thought Jaws 2 was amazing. I love Jaws 2. I mean,
in its time, it was the most successful sequel of all time until Godfather 2, which justifiably is the best sequel of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very respectable job. Then for Jaws 3D, they learned their lesson, because Jaws 2 went way over budget because everybody on the lot was billing their charges to Jaws 2. We were paying for bottled water for movies we never heard of, and the interest on 27 million was rising. And anyway, so they figured, okay, Jaws 3 will do it as a negative pickup. We'll have an independent producer, Alan Landsberg, who was cheaper than Zanuck and Brown. And Landsberg will figure out, she's shooting in Florida. He'll make his own deal with the Teamsters. He won't be saddled with all the union deals. We'll do the picture minimal union interference. And again, they started without me. Actually, Richard Matheson wrote the first draft, and they started without me again. And then they got into trouble. And then they said, "Can you come down?" And they were already shooting. They were already about to shoot. So I flew to Florida. I suggested, I went with the director, with Joe Alves. We drove out to Malibu to meet with Lou Gossett Jr. to get him to convince
Calvin Bouchard. I love his character. I love it.
And Dennis I knew from Caveman, so I was happy to work with Dennis again. So talk about matchmaking. I put Dennis Quaid together with Leah Thompson in I put Ringo together with Barbara in Caveman, and I put Donna Dixon and Dan Aykroyd together in Dr. Detroit. So
wow.
I have a long history of matchmaking by leads.
That movie, that was awesome. Dr. Detroit, another one. Yeah, wow. I know Michael and I we have this outline of what we're going to talk about next, and we're jumping off the outline, but that's okay because these stories are amazing. Thanks so much. Somebody asked you actually, Carl, who's your favorite author? They want to know who your favorite author is.
In life or in movies?
They just say who.
Yeah, one of each. Books and screenplays.
Well, you got to go a long way to beat Dickens or Rudyard Kipling, although Kipling is something of a racist, but I love his stuff, his India stuff, and I love and I'm a huge admirer of Edgar Allan Poe, of Arthur Conan Doyle. I loved Shakespeare, all the Sherlock Holmes stories. And so my favorite authors are Dickens, Arthur Conan Doyle, and Rudyard Kipling.
The classic.
Empire.
Classics, Jungle Book. Yep, classics.
Yep.
I as being a kid and seeing that as the Bare Necessities, the Jungle Book, and all that, and then not knowing about him, and then reading it later on. It's amazing how Disney used that and then
contemporary authors. I'm a big fan of hard-boiled detection fiction, so I like Michael Connelly and Robert Crace and Elmore Leonard. All guys who write wonderful. And Stephen King. They write great books that become great movies most of the time.
Yeah, really. Stephen King, definitely.
Well, certainly Michael Connelly. He wrote the Bosch series, which was 3 seasons on Netflix. So What was that? There's that.
Yeah. Now I want to know about, okay, you worked for you were writing for the Smothers Brothers, and I remember reading about the Smothers Brothers. I was born in '68, and then I saw them later on as I got older, and I would think that who's the one, Dick and the one, the bald one,
Tommy.
Sorry, yeah.
Dick and Tommy, yeah.
Sorry, but remember the controversy they had over the war, that whole, were you involved with that?
Sure.
You were involved with that when they did that?
Yeah, of course. That whole group of writers they hired for that season, we had basically Tommy wanted to make the series much more meaningful than it was, because it was kind of fluffy, and they wanted to be politically relevant. So they hired writers who could do that. Myself, Steve Martin, Bob Einstein, Alan Bly, Lorenzo Music. It was a really good group of writers, and we were topical. We attacked everything, and
that was all over the news. I mean, that was like a big thing. Like I watched a documentary on it, and it was like, I read that, like, wow.
We won the Emmy for that season, and were canceled in the same 3-month period.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And then also you worked with Bob Newhart, All in the Family, Untitled, and MASH, like Michael said, like classic sitcoms.
Yeah, and I appeared as an actor in a lot of Mork and Mindy. I was an actor. Laverne and Shirley, I was an actor.
Clueless. You're the priest in Clueless.
Yes, I was the priest in Clueless.
I watched that a couple years ago. That's Carl.
My son watched that last night, and he called to tell me. Carl's in Clueless. Yes.
Another Emmy heckling movie I'm in is Johnny Dangerously.
Yes. Oh
yes.
Michael Keaton. Wait a minute. Okay. Were you the doctor?
Yes.
Okay.
Gonna need a surgery. Yeah.
So it has to come out.
Dr. Detroit, though, that was a funny ass movie.
Yeah.
Man.
And that was a salvage job. They were already shooting when I flew out to Chicago to do the movie.
Unbelievable. So when you wrote for All in the Family is still classic. I mean, I watch it and I laugh my ass off.
I was only peripherally attached. I wrote a story, I think I wrote a story in a teleplay for them. But Rob was a good friend. Rob and Penny were very good friends of me and my wife then. We used to do a lot of stuff as two couples. And at that point, Rob and Penny were both had shows in the top 10. They were two of the biggest stars in television. And we would go as two couples, because Rob and Penny were very unassuming and did not encourage entourage or any of that stuff. We could go to the movies on Hollywood Boulevard, stand in line for tickets at the Chinese theater, and see the movie, and without being disturbed. Occasionally, somebody would do a double take and go, "Is that who I think it is?" And then Penny would spot it, and she would go in her Penny voice, "Yeah, it's us. Please don't make a thing of it, because we're just here to see the movie."
I love that accent.
And people would go, "Okay," and then they would leave us alone. They wouldn't ask for an autograph, and we didn't attract any attention. And I don't know there's a show business couple in the world that could do that now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Bob Newhart too. I watched them all the time.
Certain people who don't, set off that vibe, and then there are the Kardashians who are the opposite.
Oh, amen.
Amen. A great big hungry hole of look at me.
Egomania. Everybody.
I'm turning my fat ass to advantage.
So you mentioned Steve Martin. I'm going to guess the second thing you're most asked about is your role in The Jerk.
Iron Balls McGinty, a character defined by a sound effect.
Yes.
That character is one of.
Oh my God! No, wait. I was looking everywhere for some more clips of the fight, and I couldn't find anywhere. But I did, and I'm doing it. I'm laughing each time because I'm just dying. Right? I mean, come on, that is some funny stuff.
We did that live, and the stuntmen padded my crotch with, I had a cup and some padding, and then they showed Steve how to do a stunt groin kick, which Steve is physically very coordinated.
Yeah.
I felt safe, and I stood up for the kick, and he delivered it, and
kiss me, yes.
Then they cut, and then of course the next scene is in the restaurant.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. We got to play this clip.
There it is.
Sorry.
Don't be so hard on yourself. How do you know that was Iron Balls McGinty?
Iron Balls McGinty. Classic. Classic.
I love Bernadette Peters' voice. I love her.
Thanks for finding that clip.
Oh my God, that is so funny. That whole movie, classics, hold up. Classics, man. I'm telling you.
Did you put Steve and Bernadette Peters together? Can you claim responsibility for that?
No, but they were together when they got together. He was, forget who he was dating before that, but that was, I think maybe they hooked up. They might have hooked up on that movie, but that would not be me. That would be Carl Reiner who put them together.
Carl Reiner.
Yes.
What are you most proud of personally and professionally? Somebody asked you, Carl.
What am I most what?
That's a deep question.
Most proud of personally and professionally.
This is Facebook user. I think I'm most proud of the fact that I got a chance to do it all. I acted, I wrote,
everything.
I produced, I was on both sides of the camera, and I've been, I think, a good collaborator. A lot of the projects I worked on were successful, and I'd like to think that I contributed to that success. Not by myself. I mean, there were Michael Elias and Carl Reiner did a hell of a lot of work on The Jerk. So I think I would say, he was a good guy and he did good work. It should be, that's what I strive for.
Oh.
And he was always a pro. By professional, when you're a professional, I have a definition of professional. Because in show business, if you call somebody a pro, there's hardly any higher compliment.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is a pro is somebody whose work never sinks below a certain level of quality. No matter how hungover or tired or rushed or crazy you are, you deliver product that's camera ready or stage ready. In other words, whatever you do can go from your pen to the stage. Maybe it needs to be tweaked. Maybe the actors will play with the dialogue. Maybe the director will screw it up, as directors do. But a pro does it right, does it kind of on time, does it on demand. You pay a pro, you hire a pro, you get professional results.
Nice.
That's you summed up, my friend. That's you summed up.
I don't want to cut you off here, but I can't see it all, but it says, Mr. Carl Gottlieb, first of all, it's a great satisfaction. Could you please talk a little bit about the scene in which Meadows helps you to find Ben Gardner's boat? Thank you very much for your attention. Cordially from Brazil. Rogerio Rashid, his name is.
Hey, Rogerio, we talked about this earlier. If you want to watch on the, this will be on the page on the rebroadcast. Carl did cover that.
Yeah.
Not to ignore your question, but just trying to utilize the time we have. It's a good story, though, so please make sure you go back and watch it.
Yeah. The clip is out there. I think it might even be on YouTube for that matter.
I'll make sure I had that on there, too. He will. Jaws logs. Yeah, the Jaws log.
Victor, send me the books with $50 to cover postage and handling, and I'll sign them. No problem.
There you go.
What?
Worth
Victor,
the price.
he was all excited for you to come here. He's awesome.
Mary Lee said, "There's a sting too." Yes,
there was.
Avoid it. Please avoid it.
Yeah, I'm in it. I play a small part.
You are.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But Sting 2 was, there was a director who had a little bit too much ego, and I had a great rewrites for Sting 2, but then this director imposed his own vision on it, and then caved into the studio when they wanted to hire Mac Davis to be in it. So how do you go from
was it Redford? Yeah.
Mac Davis, that
Sting
Jackie Gleason played the villain, did a very good job. But
yeah.
There was a Sting too. It's forgettable.
Yes. Just like Jaws the Revenge. Yes. Try to forget him. Though I have to come up with some good.
I've never seen Jaws 4. To this day, I've never witnessed it.
I had to watch it again the other day because I'm interviewing Mario Van Peebles tomorrow. But
is he in it?
He is. And if you saw it opening weekend, he died. But if you see it now, he lived. Lance Guest told me the story that the movie opened on Friday, and Sunday night, the director, I think it was Joe Sargent, called him and said, "Hey, I need you at the studio Monday. We're doing reshoots." And Lance Guest asked him, "Didn't the movie open Friday?" And he goes, yes, it did. So, yes. Well, Carl, thank you so much. You have been, as you know, an important part, not only in my life personally, but in everybody that is watching tonight and will watch this on a rebroadcast. You introduced most of us, to our favorite film.
Yeah.
And for that and everything that you've done for me personally, I'm eternally grateful, and I thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, sir.
Yeah. Because Michael, he wrote the foreword to your book.
Yes.
Jaws 2, the making of a sequel. Also, we didn't talk about The Absent-Minded Waiter, which I wanted.
Oh, yes. Touch on that quick. Yes.
Yeah, let's quickly.
Nominated for an Academy Award.
Yes.
Amazing.
I first
directed it. It's
yes. The first time. Well, the second time I met Carl at the original Jaws Fest, and the second time I met him in Omaha, and we were at dinner, and one of the people at the dinner, they were talking about stuff he did, and he said, "Carl, are you familiar with The Absent-Minded Waiter?" And I was like, "Yeah, he just directed it." Yeah. So yeah.
That was a lot of fun. It was Steve Martin, Terry Garr, and Buck Henry.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's amazing. I just laugh. I'm even putting up the clips, and I'm just like.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. At the Academy, for the short subjects, because it's very hard to see them in theaters and they're not available, so they schedule a couple of screenings at the Academy where they run all the short subjects, live action shorts, the animated shorts. They run over a couple of evenings. The Academy membership gets the voting membership gets to see the shorts, and then cast their ballots. So I go to watch the screening, and I'm a member of the Academy, and I know I'm going to vote for myself, and I don't care what.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the screenings, and there's a couple of live action, and then up comes a short about paraplegic basketball.
Oh, jeez.
In Canada. Later made into a feature called Murder Ball. But anyway, here's this short subject about paraplegics playing basketball. And I go, that's it. I'm done. And sure enough. And meanwhile, Absent-Minded Waiter got all the laughs in the right places. It was playing beautifully. I was kind of going, whoa, if these people vote on this movie, I got a good chance, But no, it was the paraplegics playing basketball. So
Are you kidding me? Wait a minute, Carl. Like this has got to just watch this.
So the next year, that's my voice. That's my voice.
Table 19, all right. Table 19. Expensive restaurant. A lot of money to come in. They're expecting a professional waiter, so here we go. Professional food service. Water. And glass. Good evening and welcome. Now, would you like to see a menu?
Yes, please.
First I'll take your order, save a little time on that. Excuse me. Now, what would you like?
I'll just have the New York steak, medium, with a small spinach salad.
Very good. And for madam?
Well, I'll have some roast beef and avocado vinaigrette.
Excellent. Now, what would you like?
New York steak, medium, and a small spinach salad.
That's a popular dish. Now, would you like something to drink?
We get a little liquor on it.
We'll have 2 martinis.
2 martinis. Now, would either of you like anything to drink?
We'll have 2 martinis.
2 martinis. Excellent.
I'm sorry, I had to play it again because it just.
yeah, it was great fun.
That's
so
awesome.
The next year, a friend of mine named Larry Hankin did a short subject called Sally's Diner, which was a dark little funny, very funny little short about a guy, a screw up of a hold up guy trying to hold up an all night diner. And the same thing, I go to the vote because I'm going to, he's my friend. We want to vote and see. So we're watching Sally's Diner, and the Academy audience is laughing and clapping, and then up comes a documentary by Lynn Littman called "Number Our Days" about Holocaust survivors in Santa Monica in the 60s. And I go, Holocaust survivors, fuck, there goes the comedy. Sure enough, Holocaust survivors.
Comedy never wins. No one.
And also, I got to say that in the short subjects, in those days, the documentary division of the Motion Picture Academy was dominated by Canadians because the Canadian National Film Board.
You hear that, Victor?
Spent a lot of money on short subjects, and they did wonderful stuff. I mean, there's a Canadian National Film short called "The Critic" with Mel Brooks and Faith Hubble. There's great Canadian Film Board stuff, but as a result, you get into the Academy by being nominated generally. So because Canadians got nominated so often, they dominate the field. They tend to vote for each other.
Oh, I think that's the girl that we had on the Robert Shaw page. Her son does a Quint impersonation. He's 5 years old. It's adorable. Yeah. She's on. Thanks. Yeah. Victor's. Yeah, there he is. Yes. I just want to make sure I got all the questions because we were talking and what did he say? Some of it gets cut off, but Carl clearing. Okay. Thank you, Carl, for clearing up the crazy debates with Jaws, shooting stars, coffee, ice cream, etc. Yes.
Yeah.
Now they all want the address, Carl. You're gonna have to be sent some books.
I have a post office box specifically for that.
Okay.
If I think it's on Facebook. If you want to write to me, it's Post Office Box 46097, Los Angeles, California 90046.
Post Office Box 46097.
Los Angeles, California 90046.
Okay. Make sure I get that up there. 90046. Okay. I want to just put that on there for anybody that wants to send Carl the book to you. There it is, right? Correct? I didn't put any commas in there. I did it really quick there.
And Carl is also on Cameo.
Yes, I'm recording personalized messages on Cameo.
Oh yeah.
So definitely get your
oh,
jaws
look
fixed.
at Carl. Look at you made some. Look at this has been my highlight of my pandemic. Oh, that's so nice. That was so nice of you to come on, Carl. I know you're really busy, and I know you you.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm sitting around like everybody else.
Well, hopefully.
I remember to put on a shirt with a collar for this, because usually I just have a T-shirt.
That's what I'm wearing. Of course, I'm wearing a Jaws T-shirt, but
yeah.
Well, once again, thank you so much. You have a invitation.
It was amazing meeting you. I've been wanting to meet you. Everybody else has, and I haven't. So it's been a pleasure. I was a little fangirling out there. I was just holding back, like listening.
Jay, are you located in the U.S. or in England?
I live in Phoenix, Arizona, but currently I'm back home visiting my family in Boston, and I'm going to go to the vineyard because my brother has a house there. So I got I'll probably go there this summer. Yeah. So
wish I could be there, boy. I'd love to be on the vineyard, walking on the ocean now.
Donna says that it's still Donna. I think you know Donna. You probably met her. She's I call her Queen Jaws. She's a queen of Jaws, but she lives there now, and she's saying that they're starting to open up things gradually, and like everywhere else. But something Rick Vale loves this. I got it. Raising the Canadian flag. I just want to make sure I got everybody's comments on here.
Victor, you're still America's hat, my friend.
All about Canada. I think Donna left, but I don't know if she's here or not. But Donna, she's
stopped by. Yeah.
Donna I just wanted to say something about Martha's Vineyard. But anyways, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Stories.
And you have a invitation anytime you want to stop by. Just let us know. Pop on. Next week we'll be talking to Murray Hamilton, and we will be joined by his son David. So,
is Murray still alive?
No, Murray passed a while ago, but David acts now, and he's got that. I'm so jealous because he inherited Murray's amazing head of hair. So.
I think with Murray, everybody wants that jacket.
The anchor jacket or the pastels.
Yeah. The only smart person I can think of is Debbie Reynolds. She was the smart one. She thought ahead and collected all the memorabilia. I mean, that she had Judy Garland's shoes. I mean, didn't she have like almost $5 million worth of like movie?
Yeah, she had all her costumes. Yeah,
sold it all at Sotheby's, I think, after she passed or something.
Yeah,
right?
they had an auction. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
She came out. There's like 3 or 4 pairs of ruby slippers, and one of them was there's a whole science about which were camera worn, and which weren't, and which were the stuntman's. Some of them were for the stunt double. Anyway, probably because I didn't accumulate a lot of props that I could sell. I am not a. I don't get the obsession with picture props, but I do have some Jaws. Some of the plastic toys. The first, because when Jaws came out, there was basically T-shirts and lunchboxes, and that was it.
Yeah, maybe I didn't know the figurines came out until later on.
But then the Spawn makes these little plastic action, the boat with the shark coming up on it.
Yeah.
One of those in the box.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Michael's got one too, right, Mike?
I do.
Jim Beller's got.
Jim Beller's got 20 of them. Yeah.
Jim Beller's got 10. I love it. Oh, here's about the island. But we still have the island to ourselves. Murray Hamilton needs that, rocks that anchor. I know he does rock that anchor jacket. Oh, good Lord. Everybody wants that anchor jacket. Oh, he was only 63 when he passed away, September 1st, 1986. Murray Hamilton. Thank you, Victor, for that. Amazing. Well, this has been so fun. I hope Carl comes back again. Oh, my God. This is
anytime.
Awesome. I will.
I like that story about the Aurora you told me. That was pretty cool. I really love that.
It's a little, a little subversive backstory.
Yeah, and then I was telling Michael, I'm like, I don't care. If I had an Emmy, I'd have it put me here. I'd be like holding it here. I'd be like, oh, you mean this? Oh, yeah.
You could put it on your coffee table on top of my book.
Oh, his book. Oh, the book. Yeah, you did his forward. That's amazing. That was great.
We were downstairs in my other on camera site where I sit for interviews. I could tilt down, or I could show you the trophy table with stuff on it. But
yeah, I wonder who is the Meadows closed now. I bet you they were probably in some shop in California, the secondhand shops or something.
If they even left the vineyard.
Yeah.
They probably went on the truck and then went to the wardrobe department until they were thrown out.
Well, Michael said that, and he gave me the idea. And it was like Michael said that when we go to the Jaws Fan Fest this September, that we're gonna go start looking around because of the remember, Michael, when you're
hitting
talking
all the thrift stores, because the desk from the cabin, nobody claimed the desk from the cabin, so it's got to be out there somewhere.
Is he moving it on it? Is it in there? There's really Emmy.
And then, well, Jim Beller told me that he was up there once a couple years ago at a used bookstore, and he just saw a shark book. And when he opened it, it said property of Universal Studios, and it had a bunch of handwritten notes in it. So that was probably something that got left behind. So that island's got to be crawling with goodies.
You gotta love it, Iron Balls McGinty.
That's him.
C'est moi.
All right. Well, thank you again, and everybody have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Carl Gottlieb, and we will see everybody next week.
Put some comments down there. We'll go back to you. I'm sure if Carl's got the time, when he's going to look around, he can answer your questions later on if he's got the time to look at it when we show the rebroadcast. But I can't tell you, as far as a fan of that movie, I get to talk to you finally. I know Michael's like, whatever, but I'm just.
No, not at all.
So much. You made my night. Thanks, Carl. You're awesome.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Good night.
Everybody, thank you, and have a good night. We'll see you next Thursday when we talk about Murray Hamilton. Maybe somebody will have a jacket and they'll come on with it, or at least I'll try to make. I'll make one. I'll try to make one, but I can't. There you go. Everybody, thanks again. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Michael. I'll see you guys. All right.
Good night.
Have a great night. Thanks again. Bye, guys. So much. Appreciate it. All right. I stop.